Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Ben and I'm a self-taught web developer who went from zero to paid full stack in 8 months via the Odin project. And in today's video, I'm doing something a little different. I'm doing a video review, and the title of this video is How I Learned to Code in 4 months and Got a Job, brackets, no CS degree, no boot camp. And if you like this kind of content, please do like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, let's take a look at this video. The reason I wanted to review this is because I thought the headline was super catchy. 4 months seems like a really short period of time, so I'm really curious to see what he has to say in this video. I've never seen it before, so I'm watching it first time alongside you.
I dropped out of college, was in debt, working 60 hours a week, hated my job, and most importantly, I felt stuck.
Okay, so initially setting up the stage here, setting the scene that, you know, his life was miserable. He was a college dropout. Okay, so presuming you went to college, probably not for computer science. And then he was working 60-hour weeks. That's a lot of hours to work in a week. You know, what's that, 12-hour days if you're doing 5 days? That's a lot. That's going to get anybody bummed and stressed. So, yeah, I don't blame him for looking further afield.
This is the story of how I learned how to code within 4 months and I got a job. I did it with no computer science degree or a coding bootcamp. I'm going to explain
Okay, no CS degree and no coding bootcamp, so self-taught.
Exactly what I learned, how I got a job, and how much that job paid. Let's go. Before I got into tech, I was working a lot of dead-end sales jobs because I dropped out of community college and I didn't really have any other skills. I didn't like the idea of always having to hop from job to job if I didn't like something.
Okay, so he was working in sales and didn't like the idea of hopping from job to job. So it seems like he didn't really have any clear defined direction of where he wanted to go in his life, which is fair enough because it's really hard to make that decision. And sales, yeah, I think that's hit and miss. Some people love it, some people absolutely hate it, depending on who you are and the kind of work that you're doing, I think.
Wanted something with a little bit more career mobility long term. I didn't even really know what coding was.
Career mobility long term. So what's he saying? I think he just means more options.
Knew that the tech industry was, let's say, a great environment for
180 grand now.
200-ish, yeah.
250,000.
400,000 annually.
growth.
Okay, so he was allured by the money, clearly, which is fine. I mean, I think money is a very good reason to get into development, software development. Though if that's your only reason, I don't think you're going to be very successful. You have to enjoy what you're doing, otherwise you're going to burn out very quickly if you even get to the point of getting a job.
Yeah, by the way, I'm not knocking sales. I think sales is a really important skill to learn. I just needed a change and it really just wasn't for me long term. And I wanted to gain the ability to build something of my own. The idea of building something from 0 to 1 seemed like a superpower to me.
Yeah, sales is an extremely, I think, valuable skill set to have. If you can sell, very, very helpful because it's going to apply to pretty much your everyday life. You have to be able to talk to people and be persuasive. And, you know, having experience in sales is good. But like I said, not for everyone.
Day one, I just went on Google and I typed in how to code. That's when I found a site called Free Code Camp and I started to learn about web development. I quickly learned about HTML, CSS, and I learned about my first real programming language called JavaScript. There's a bunch of different programming languages that you could learn, but I personally chose JavaScript because I wanted to build web apps. Even major companies like Uber and Airbnb use it, and there's a massive demand for it in the job market.
All right, yeah, so he went for JavaScript. Which I think a lot of people do because it's just in such high demand, especially for web apps. I mean, it's the language of the browser, so anyone who does web development is probably going to be touching JavaScript at some point.
By using Free Code Camp, I started to learn the basics of coding. I learned things like variables, loops, objects, and functions.
Pretty much all you need to be a web developer, to be honest. It's not too complex from the day-to-day in terms of the data structures that you're using, that's for sure.
But even after doing the tutorials, I didn't really feel like I could apply it to anything, and I still didn't even know how to do something as basic as building a website. And I realized that I learned how to code, not exactly how to program.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say if you do tutorials and you're just typing into the editor side by side with someone, you still don't know how to code. You know, the differentiation between coding and programming, whatever. You either know how to write a piece of software to achieve an end goal or you don't. tutorials is not going to get you there, right? Because you're copying. It's like being in French class and the teacher says, repeat after me, je m'appelle Brian, and everybody says the same thing with their own name. You're not really speaking French. You're just a parrot. Same with doing tutorials, I think.
I was writing code to solve logic problems, but I didn't know how to program, which is using the code to build something useful.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what he means. He was writing code to solve logic problems. So I think it sounds like he was doing things like leak code, small, little discrete problems that have nothing to do with web development. Yeah, I think they're very useful just to get fundamentals of a language down, but they are completely, I won't say irrelevant just because they help you learn a little bit. I'd say the medium and hards are becoming in the realm of irrelevant when it comes to web development. If you can do the medium and hards, then chances are you can write a web application or parts of it as well. But I think focusing on projects is going to give you a lot more bang for your buck, where you're actually building web apps. So hopefully that's what he did.
At this point though, already, I was starting to love the journey. I really liked problem solving and I could see myself doing something like this long term. So I did what any sane person would do, and I quit my job and I moved to Korea to minimize my expenses, and I decided to learn full-time.
See, he took a risk. This is a big risk, right? And this cannot be understated in his success here. So this guy realized he likes it. So, okay, he was drawn to it for the money. Fair enough. Then he realized, you know what? I actually like the challenge of this. I'm going to commit and I'm going to double down. He left everything and went to Korea, presuming that's where his family is from. He probably got to live at home, right? Rent-free or whatever, lower living expenses, right? And he took that risk, left everything behind to double down on this. And I think a lot of people will brush over that point. But that's what it takes in order to become successful in many cases. You have to make a lot of sacrifices, because learning to code and write software well is a sacrifice, especially when you're coming into it new and fresh. You're going to spend at least a year of your life not talking to many people if you're really serious about this.
Learning full-time was a lot harder than I thought. I've actually never studied anything this complicated or tough before, and I was quickly starting to realize that I didn't really know how to study at this pace. I would sit in front of my computer and hours would go by. That was when I went online, I typed in how to learn, and I found a course called Learning How to Learn by Barbara Oakley. This course was life-changing. My two main takeaways were: one, it taught me how to learn in spaced segments, a technique called Pomodoros, and the course taught me that I needed to create a dedicated space for learning, so I joined a co-working space so I could focus better. Now,
really smart. That is such a good idea. Now, in the Odin project, they do cover the Pomodoro technique, and they do go over how to learn, this approach and mindset shift and learning how to learn. And that's so important. You cannot just expect yourself to go from life A and into life B of becoming a coder and focused solely and intently on coding without going through some mind shift or mindset shifting, because it is so different. And what he did here was really smart. I'm not sure what his inspiration was for doing this, how he figured it out for himself. But yes, learning how to learn, super important, especially if you're not an academic and you haven't come from a background in education where you've had to learn how to learn efficiently. And then setting up a space as well, I think is really important, because it helps you set that divide between your work life and personal life, so you have more of a balance. As soon as you leave that area, or for him, the co-working space, you get to go home, chill, you relax. It's different mindsets, different headspaces.
Armed with new knowledge, I got back to studying, and it worked. Here's what a normal day looked like. 8 a.m., wake up. 8:30, head to the train station. 9 a.m., arrive at the co-working space. 9:15.
You see what he has here is a schedule, a set schedule. It was so, let's say, regular and regimented that he could make a video, describing his schedule, because it was the same thing every single day. And us humans, I believe that we operate very well under routine and schedule. Okay, and I think this is a very important thing as well when you're learning to code, is having a schedule and sticking to it.
Coffee, journaling, reviewing the curriculum. 9:30 to 12:30, I would have my first study session where I did 30-minute increments of Pomodoros. From 12:30 to 1:30, I would eat lunch and take a small break, then back to studying. From 2 p.m. to 6:30, it was more 30-minute increments of Pomodoros until I was ready to head out. From 6:30 to 7:30, I would gym 3 times a week, and then 8:30 to 9, I would eat dinner with my grandma, then help her clean. This was my schedule for 6 days a week, no exceptions. The next part of free code.
6 days a week too. I mean, that's an impressive schedule to keep up for that long. Now, what is he doing here? He's probably doing 8-9 hour days, which is very solid, very thorough. But he put in time for himself. He didn't start too early. He had a good lunch. He was going to the gym. He spent time with his family, his grandmother every day. So these things are, really important as well to break up your coding, just so that you can stay sane. And I'm just going to go there. He's also obviously from Korean descent, and Koreans know how to study. It's ingrained in their culture, these long study days. So, I think he has that on his side going into this as well.
CodeCamp was a lot more challenging. Front-end projects. They essentially give you a list of projects that you have to build using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. To me, this felt like a massive jump because I never actually built anything before. I felt stuck at this stage until I found a YouTube channel of this guy named Steven who would stream himself building these projects line by line. By copying him and recreating what he was doing,
word for word, bar for bar,
I was able to use that experience and build the next couple of projects on my own. I also found a great resource called watchingcode.com where you watch and code. By following along once again and modeling others, the concepts really started to take hold. And I was really starting to understand what I was doing, not just solving a math problem.
See, there you go. It looked like he was going originally studying kind of leak code style problems. Now he's actually having to crack that nut of like, what the hell is web development? How do I even build a project? How do I build a website? What's involved here? This is where there's real, I'd say, boots on the ground thinking is developed, and understanding is developed, is in building projects. Honestly, I don't have much time for leak code myself. I think it's a waste of time above the easies. The easies are great just to understand fundamental concepts of a programming language, but above that, honestly, waste of time. Spend your time on projects over anything else. Maybe do leak code if you have to for an interview, if you're interviewing at that kind of company. Myself, I will never interview or get a job at a company that relies on leak code. I'm just not interested in doing it.
Exactly 1 month.
Rant aside.
I ended up earning my free CodeCamp front-end developer certificate. I was learning a lot, but I never actually built anything full stack before. Something with a front end or an interface, the thing that you see within the browser, a database where all the information lives essentially, and a server which handles and manipulates all the data in the back end by taking in requests from the front end. So I still felt like an imposter and not a real developer.
You're not an intellectual, you're a fake and a...
Yeah, well, building a full stack application, I mean, it takes a long time to get there. Let's just start basic with, building simple front ends with vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Once you're comfortable there, then you're going to sprinkle in some more advanced concepts in your CSS, looking at how to better align things on a page using Flexbox or Grid. You want to improve your JavaScript, maybe even start stepping into a front-end framework. But going to full stack and incorporating a back end on that as well is a lot. So, not something you can rush into quickly. Unless you're doing...
how do you pick the right dog food? Well, you want real meat to be the first ingredient.
Get rid of that. Unless you're doing Ruby on Rails, of course, then it's front end and back end built application. So that's a little bit different. And I think Django is also very similar.
Melting Lindor.
Sorry for the ads here, but this is YouTube.
So, to become a programmer, I decided to build my first full stack project. Remember Steve with the YouTube channel? I reached out to him to get his assistance to help me build my first full stack web app.
See, and then reaching out to somebody who is maybe a mentor, someone you would see as a mentor, someone who can act as a mentor to you. That takes a lot of guts to do as well, because you're putting yourself out there, you're being vulnerable, and you're going to have to commit to something, right? If you're asking them to help you, then you're committing to actually doing something that they can help you with. A lot of people, I think, are too afraid to do that, but that's another big step that this guy took.
app, we decided to meet 3 times a week. Here's what we did.
3 times
we
a
picked one major overarching project, which will teach me the basics of CRUD.
Okay, I mean, I don't know what the relationship is between himself and I think he said his name was Steve, if it was paid or not. But I mean, that seems like a really big commitment from Steve to be able to meet this guy 3 times a week to help him. I think if somebody asked me that, I'm open to discussion with people, but I'm just so busy, to be checking in with people all the time and helping them out. You'd have to really carefully plan your day and your week. So I don't know how that worked.
Which is create, read, update, and delete. These are the foundations for any web application. I decided to clone Pinterest. I honestly don't think I would have gotten a job without this next part, so pay attention. I asked Steve to treat me like a real junior developer working at a company. We implemented a project management tool called Jira. We used Jira to compartmentalize the entire project and write the requirements of exactly what I'd be building. This taught me how to estimate my work. And
I mean, this is huge experience here, and I don't know if that was Steve's idea or not to approach the work this way, but this is exactly how you'd work in a professional setting. And getting experience working in this way, I think, is going to really help you out, and especially if you can convey that to someone who's interviewing you. They would say, oh, okay, you've already got this kind of experience, then that makes it easier for us onboarding you as a junior.
Plan how to build an entire web app from zero to launch. We also set the project up on GitHub, which is a version control application. This taught me how to develop different branches for when I was working on certain features, and I could learn how to control different versions of the code. Most tech companies use some version of the 2 applications because being a developer isn't just about knowing how to code, it's about knowing how to work collaboratively with other people as well. Steve grilled me on our pair programming sessions. He was very strict about me keeping the deadlines and the estimates that I originally wrote out for myself. He would constantly question why I was doing what I was doing, and he even taught me the concept of dry. Just don't repeat yourself, or essentially just making reusable code. I had to learn how to build by Googling for answers and using sites like Stack Overflow. And he would leave me a lot of comments on things that I needed to change, so I learned how to debug my code on my own.
I mean, yeah, to get someone like Steve to coach you through your first kind of big full stack project like this, I don't know how you go and find someone like Steve right off the bat. If you have someone like that you can lean on, who's going to invest that time in you, then that is amazing. That's going to really help you grow. I'm guessing that there was some money being transacted between this dude and Steve in order to keep that relationship going and set it up the way that it was.
This made me feel like I was a real developer. At this time, I supplemented my learning journey with Udemy courses on React and Node because these were the 2 frameworks that I chose to build my Pinterest clone. As a result of building my first full stack project, I ended up learning how to do things like how to design a database, build APIs, set up auth, and eventually push the app to a cloud server. These are all things I would have never learned by just doing tutorials. And in around 2 months, I finished my first full stack web app. I remember when I finished the app, I felt like a real programmer. That's when reality set in, and I realized I'm still broke. I haven't made a single penny in over a couple of months, and I still needed to find a job. It was time to see if everything that I learned was actually worth anything. First, I defined the job that I wanted. I wanted it to be remote.
Okay, so you spent 2 months working on this application, which, yeah, I mean, that sounds reasonable for a simple kind of clone with a front end and a back end. Again, I'm not sure how much the mentorship that he got from his mentor actually kind of pushed him in the direction to be able to do. But I'm guessing a lot. From the way he said that his mentor was giving him a lot of feedback, a lot of comments. So it's certainly something that he had help with. So bear that in mind when you're comparing, yourself to other people. Is look, you gotta be fair on yourself as well. But how much help did the other person get? Not to take away from the fact that he stepped up to really commit to building his first full stack application, and he leveraged the resources that he had around him. And one of those is to have a mentor. That's absolutely fine. I think that's a really, really smart idea. So now he's looking at the kind of jobs he wants, which, is fair enough. I don't think you should be too picky in the start, especially in today's market. But let's see what he lands on.
And most importantly, I wanted to work for a small to medium-sized company because I hate working in a corporate environment. I found all the jobs that fit my parameters on sites like weworkremotely.com and remoteok.io. And instead of just applying to these jobs, I found the contact information of the hiring managers and developers who worked at the company, and I messaged them to introduce myself. I explained exactly what...
Okay, so he's doing a little bit of networking, trying to take a backdoor route. And I think one of the reasons you want to be doing this is just because, I mean, right now, what is it? Companies are receiving 200, 300 more, 1,000 applications for junior roles. So it's very, very, very competitive. You're just your resume is it's not even just a resume. It's just a piece of data in a system right now, and it's just going to hit a flag, and you're either going to deflect out one way and be refused from moving ahead, or if you're a small minority, you're going to get flicked the other way. So he's trying to create that an ally within an organization that's going to flick his resume in the right direction.
What I had learned up until this point, what I was looking for. I even included the link to my GitHub so they could see the projects that I had built. Most importantly, I included an offer that I know that they couldn't refuse. I offered to work for free. And I understand, guys, not everyone can afford...
Yeah, this is going to be a very contentious point in general. I think I've never really held an opinion that's too strong on whether or not you should work for free. I think everybody should be able to choose to do what they want to do, and no one else's opinions really matter in that case. If you want to work for free, then go ahead, work for free. You shouldn't give two shits whether or not I think you should work for free or not. My personal thoughts on that, would I work for free? You know what, if it was going to land me a job in the future and secure my ability, give me enough experience to secure my ability to get a job in the future, then maybe working for free is something I would have done. Especially if it was just for a couple months, just to make sure that the company who is interested in me got to know me, got to like me, and understood, okay, he's not as big of a risk. We've seen him work. He's worked for free for a couple months. We're going to hire you. If it was that kind of relationship, I'd consider it. But I think you got to be very careful, because you could end up being there's some bad actors out there that will take advantage of this kind of relationship and will really squeeze you. And at the end of it, you better hope they'd even give you a good reference, depending on the kind of people that there are out there. So you got to be very careful. And another angle that some people don't like about this is that if you work for free, then you are making it hard. You're taking advantage of your privilege. You're making it harder for other people who can't work for free because they simply cannot afford it to get their foot in the door. Whatever, it's a free market. Do what you got to do. I'm not going to judge you too hard for whatever you do, but I would consider very carefully whether or not working for free is the right thing
to do this, but I had originally estimated that this was going to take me around 4 months anyways, and I had another month of time that I could essentially dedicate to learning. I knew all I had to do was get my foot into a company. I could essentially learn there and then prove my worth over time to leverage that into a real job long term. Overall, I found around 22 jobs I thought fit the parameters of what I was looking for. I got around 6 responses. From those responses,
let's just go back here. So all right, the job titles are in JS, Node, React. There's some front end, there's some full stack. So different industries. He's got some green highlighted ones there that I guess are ones that he's more interested in. Now, potential salary, quite a big range here, but you can see, for someone who's only been studying web development for 3-4 months, or I think in his case 4 months, the salaries are pretty solid. I'm guessing that's US dollars. Ranging from 75, there's a low of 36, which is great for your first job, if that's what you need to get the experience, but most of them are around 75, 80, 100,000 US a year. These are really decent salaries for someone who's, switching fresh into a career.
I thought fit the parameters of what I was looking for. I got around 6 responses. From those responses, I got 4 interviews. And out of the 4 interviews, I ended up getting 3 legitimate job offers. Wow. Even though I had offered...
That's insane. And did he approach every one of these people saying he's going to work for free? Is that really going to up your job offer chances? potentially. I mean, you are lower risk. What was the job offer in this case? I mean, when you say you had a job offer, usually it means in traditional sense that someone's offering you an annual salary to do work. But was he just being offered like an internship to work for free for a certain amount of time? You know, I'd like to hear more details on what exactly these offers were.
Offered to work for free. After the technical interviews, the employers thought that I had enough skills at that point where I was worth hiring for a full-time job. I ended up choosing the company with the best opportunity to learn, and that also happened to have the best compensation package as well. My first...
All right, so it sounds like he did technical interviews and was good enough after those technical interviews that they were willing to give him the job. So maybe saying that I'm willing to work for free, does that give you an edge just to get your face in front of an interviewer? Maybe. It's a risk though, because if they take you up on it, then you're stuck with working for free.
Salary was $50,000 a year.
All right,
then,
so 50K a year. I mean, that's decent for your first web developer salary, right? Especially being brand new, fresh, with just a couple months in a career that's takes a long time to get good at.
after my probationary period, I was making $65,000 a year. My benefits kicked in like health and dental, but the biggest perk for me was that I got to work remotely the entire time as long as I worked the US time zone. I'm not saying that you'll be an expert developer if you follow this plan. I'm just sharing what I did to learn just enough to land me a job, as most of the progress that I've had as a developer all came on the job. No luck here, just focused effort. Now,
so true. Most of the progress, most of the learning, experience, and knowledge you will gain as a web developer will be paid on the job. You've just got to get yourself to that point where you can get hired, right? So, you know, in a time frame, you're working this much unpaid to get your first job, but after that, every second of your learning will be paid, and that is an amazing thing.
now, I've been working in tech for over a decade, and let me be the first to tell you that nobody cares about your credentials. Learning how to code was mainly two things: learning how to solve problems, and two, persisting until you find the answer that you're looking for. If you're interested in seeing us learn more cool stuff, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And also, if you want to see me apply these principles to something other than coding, like something artistic, click on this video where we...
All right, yeah, I mean, that's the end of that video. I thought that was pretty good. I think it's pretty honest account of how it's how one might go from knowing nothing to getting their first job. 4 months seems like a stretch. However, you know, he gave up everything and focused on this full-time, studying 6 days a week, even moved countries to a place where he'd practically have no living expenses. You know, these are, let's say, factors that not everybody has the opportunity to access, right? So you got to bear that in mind. For a lot of people, I think that you'd have to extend that time simply because they wouldn't be able to study for, you know, 8-9 hours a day, 6 days a week. But still, credit to him. I mean, if he did it in 4 months, that's great. And I think one thing that's understated in this video, which I think he did a great job in the video, but one thing that's really, I can read between the lines and see that he has that a lot of people won't get from this video, is that persistence piece. The ability or stubbornness to sit there and solve a problem all the way through to the end and not giving up, even when you hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. Because in the beginning, when you're learning, you're going to need that so much to get you through, because most people will just give up and feel like, you know what, this isn't for me. So I think he's probably got a lot of persistence, a lot of grit, and ability to grind. Anyway, I thought it was a really interesting video. What do you think? Is it possible to do in 4 months? And what do you think of these kinds of video reviews? Do you want to see more of these or not in the future? Let me know. Okay, thank you. We'll see you in the next one.